I'm going to go ahead and get started because there's a lot of you here. Hello. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Amanda and I'm a customer success manager at Boomerang. Boomerang is a productivity tool for managing your email more efficiently and scheduling meetings directly from your email. And here at Boomerang, we are all about helping people find ways to increase their productivity. And we have so much respect for educators and all that you do. We wanted to dedicate a webinar to all of you and support you in boosting your productivity and in turn, improving your mental health. And I couldn't think of someone better to speak on incorporating productivity into daily educator life than my co-host, Stacy.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to be here and for this opportunity to share alongside you, Amanda. Thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening. Let me tell you, just planning this talk and putting together all the research that's gone into my evolution, having the opportunity to work with some wonderful people on the Boomerang team who are so intentional with their work and committed to helping people be their most productive and best selves. It's been such a treat to craft this presentation, and I sincerely hope that you will get so much out of our time together today. So my name again is Stacy Roshan. Currently, I'm working as an EdTech and innovative teaching consultant. I started as a math teacher and then moved into an EdTech coaching role, and I've been in education for over 15 years now. And I will say this now, and I will repeat it again at the end. I love interacting with other educators and supporting in the best way that I can. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And the best ways to do that are on Twitter. I'm at BuddyXO, or on my website, which is techiemusings.com. And I have all my contact information there. So just to get started, we do have a little bit of something fun for our webinar. So we're going to do a little giveaway. So it does involve posting to Twitter, but we're hoping that you will share out some moments of revelation or ideas that really vibe with you, or just some research that we share that really syncs up with what you're thinking. So if you're game, interact with us by posting on Twitter during this webinar, or even shortly after. We'll wait a little bit to choose winners, and also for people who are watching the recording to be able to participate too. Make sure when you're tweeting that you use the hashtag Boomerang Webinar and tag both Boomerang, which is just at Boomerang, and myself, I'm at BuddyXO. And I'll pick 3 people to send a Kindle copy of my book to. All right, so let's go ahead and let me start with a little bit of background before we dive into all the things that we want to talk about this evening. So perhaps you'll be able to relate to my story in some way. I began my career in education as a math teacher, and over the years, I transitioned into spending most of my days working with teachers in an EdTech coaching role. And each year, it seemed like the quantity of messages that were coming in on a daily basis would increase. And not everyone would reply to my emails right away because, people are busy and dealing with email overwhelm, leading to a backlog of replies on their end. And I always felt responsible to keep on top of things because I wanted to be helpful and responsive, which just increased the number of emails that I needed to remember to follow up on when I didn't hear a response back. Now, around that same time, I was learning a lot about research-backed productivity strategies, like the toll task switching takes on our performance and on our well-being. And that's a topic I'm super interested in, well-being. So the research I was reading, combined with what I was feeling internally, prompted me to take a serious look at my workflow and tools that could help me better manage my email. And that's when I discovered Boomerang. And I'm going to share with you today how I've used Boomerang to create some really good systems for myself, because I think that it really does start with the systems that we create. So I'll turn it over to Amanda to share a little bit more about herself.
Yeah, so I was a 5th grade teacher for 3 years, and before that, a 3rd grade teacher and 1st grade teacher. And I absolutely loved teaching, and I felt so confident in the classroom. And while I felt like my credential program did an amazing job preparing me for classroom management and lesson planning, they did not prepare me for all of the work outside of actually teaching. I felt disorganized and I would forget to respond to emails. I checked my inbox way too much throughout the day and then things would slip through the cracks. So in general, my lack of email management skills made me feel overwhelmed and like I was trying to juggle way too many things. So I came across Boomerang in the last few months of my teaching, and it was this magical moment of like, where has this been my whole teaching career? And I immediately started using it to boomerang messages in my inbox and started thinking of ways I could have been using it for meeting scheduling. And it blew my mind how valuable of a resource it can be for educators. So that's why I feel really excited to be here today sharing these tools with you.
So we're going to break our time together into three main parts, and we're going to start with the problem with email. Amanda and I will then share examples of demos of how Boomerang supports focus work and mental wellness. And though most of our time is going to focus on email, we will close out by sharing how Boomerang makes scheduling meetings more friendly and efficient too. All right, so let's face it, managing the constant incoming stream of information that we have to deal with on a daily basis is overwhelming. I don't know who can honestly say that they have a system in place that makes it feel effortless. There's too much stuff that we have to remember. There's endless demands on our time and focus. And trust me, I felt the pressure weigh down hard on me. And that's why I'm here today, sharing with you. My own challenges have really forced me to take a hard look at what I was doing and the systems I had in place. In this webinar, I'll be sharing why I felt so motivated to make a change in my relationship with email and how Boomerang has allowed me to implement research-backed strategies into my flow, not only to maximize my productivity and efficiency, but also for my mental health and well-being. And I'm lucky to have Amanda here to present with me with her knowledge working in customer success at Boomerang and her background as a fellow educator. Please know too that I don't have everything figured out. Life gets busy, and as great as our systems are, we're not in perfect control of our schedules. I have found though that when we have these systems in place, even if we can't stick to all of the pieces every day or even every week, if we can adopt these strategies into our general flow, our routines, and our habits, it can really make a significant difference. Now, if you've heard me speak before, or if you know me, you've heard me say, a tool is only a tool until it's part of a solution. Boomerang is an amazing tool, but its superpowers really do lie in how you use it. And I hope that what you learned today will give you some sparks of inspiration that you'll be able to use in your own workflow and adapt to your own needs and your personality. So let's start with the problem with email. Now, there's a ton of research out there, but I want to focus on a couple of things before we launch into how to actually use Boomerang. Research has shown that the cost of distraction, multitasking, and task switching on our productivity and our wellness is really great. When we get distracted, we lose our momentum. In general, it takes over a minute to recover from a single email interruption. Now, what's even worse is that we often fail to complete the task that we originally set out to do after that distraction. And also, these small interruptions, they add up really quickly. Think about it this way. When an email distracts you from what you were doing in the moment, you are now part of someone else's schedule. That distraction has shuffled your priorities. Your attention is now on someone else's needs. And then we don't have time to get everything done. When we don't have enough time to do everything, our to-dos for the days and our emails, they just keep stacking up. And the ironic thing is that our email is causing us so much additional distraction, which only further fuels that problem with distraction in the first place. And then we get to stress, right? Multitasking has been found to increase productions of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and we're constantly multitasking. We feel like we can do it. It feels more efficient. It's not, but that doesn't mean that we aren't all guilty of it. I mean, how many people might be listening to this webinar right now while sorting through some emails or scrolling through their social media feed? And at work today, were you toggling between an instant message chat and a presentation that you were working on or a lesson plan that you were creating? Our brains don't actually multitask well. The research shows that focusing on more than one thing at a time reduces our productivity by 40%. And get this, in a study, researchers found that participants without access to email, all right, so they didn't have any access to email, they switched windows an average of 18 times per hour, which seems pretty reasonable. But then those who had access to email, they switched windows a whopping 37 times per hour. So we're all doing this multitasking all day and we're feeling the stress mount. And then we go home in the evening and we feel like we need to tweak out just a little bit more work, right? So we spend the evening sorting through our inbox, replying to messages, and we never have a chance to really recover, recharge, and renew before doing it all over again the next day. And it becomes a cycle. We don't get enough leisure time, our focus begins to suffer, and then we're prone to more distractions the next day, furthering our sense of overload and stress.
Yeah, and I think that if anyone needs to protect that leisure time, it's educators. You need that time to rest and recharge so you can be your best self in the classroom.
Yeah, so important. And I'm not going to say that solving any of this is simple, but there are definitely systems and tools that we can share that can help address these very real issues. And that's exactly what we plan on sharing today. Let's dive into Boomerang. I personally use Boomerang with Gmail, so that's what I'll be showing in my demos. But Amanda, do you want to share a little bit more about what Boomerang is for those people who are new?
So Boomerang is an email management plus meeting scheduling tool. It's a simple add-on for Outlook and Gmail users that helps you manage your inbox more efficiently and schedule meetings with less hassle. At Boomerang, like I said, we're obsessed with productivity and supporting users to be their most productive selves. And we also have quite a few former educators on our team, so we're particularly excited to show teachers a new way to improve their productivity. And like Stacy said, we'll be on Gmail, but if you're curious about Boomerang for Outlook and would like more information on that, please message us in the chat.
So let's go ahead and start by taking a look at some Boomerang email features. Our demo is going to show you what you can do in Boomerang with Gmail on the web, but know that Boomerang is also available as a mobile app. So all these features also work with the Boomerang app on your iOS or on your Android device. Now, the feature that I love most in Boomerang is the actual Boomerang feature, which will return the email to your inbox at the day and time you reschedule it for. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, my email has a snooze feature already, but Boomerang has several superpowers, and I want to take you through a couple of scenarios and demos about how I manage each of those scenarios. So let's go over to my inbox here, and let's go into this first scenario. So say that I need to consult with somebody else before replying to an email. And I have a standing meeting with my supervisor who I need to consult before I'm ready to respond to this teacher. So what I tend to do then is, instead of overloading my supervisor with all these emails as they come in, I just hold them all until I have that standing meeting. And say that I have that meeting on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. All right, what I'll do is I press the Boomerang option right here, and all I do is, you can type with natural language and keyboard short, and you can use keyboard shortcuts too, and I love that. I use that all the time. So I can just say Tuesday at 1 p.m. Boomerang will know that when I say Tuesday, it means the next Tuesday coming up, and that's it. Then I press confirm, and so now it's out of my inbox right here. It kind of gets saved in this little folder, but I don't need to worry about it at all, because at that day, at that specific time, it's going to return back to my inbox. And then when I meet with my supervisor, we can discuss that, and I can reply directly back to the person during that meeting, because it's going to pop right back up to me. Next scenario. So, we all get informational emails like newsletters, and I like to read them at a dedicated time. I like to make sure that I'm doing this at my computer when I'm sitting, ready to take notes, ready to watch all the videos that might be there. So I actually have some set times in my calendar. We're going to talk a little bit more about time blocking and task bashing in a little bit, but I tend to Boomerang these. So say that my time is, again, I can use natural language. So Wednesday at noon, I can just type that in, and that's when I'm going to read this email in its entirety. I know some people use folders, but for me, I feel like folders and the emails get stacked up there. You don't always look back at it. I just want it to come back to me at the time I have dedicated. Wednesday at 12 p.m. is when I want to deal with it. So I'm going to do that for that one. Now, next scenario. So say I have emailed a teacher and they tell me that, like the tool that I share with them is perfect, but for a future unit of study. And I want to remember to follow up with the teacher when they get to that unit. I don't want them to have to remember to follow up with me. I want to do that, right? Make it a little bit easier. So one thing is like, yes, you could set another to-do or put it in your calendar, but then you lose all the context from the email. And that would be really helpful to reference when you are going to, do this thing in the future. And maybe not all the context is actually in the email, right? Because maybe you had a chance to like sit and chat with the teacher. You just want to add a little bit more. So what I do is Boomerang, and here's a real superpower with a note. So right here, you can type a note and that just comes to you. It's for only yourself, and you can add some additional context right here and then press the save button. So you do that and say that I want to follow up with this teacher in March. Maybe you don't know the specific date. So let's use the calendar this time. Let's look at March dates. All right, middle of March. Let's go for the 15th. And let's say that we want to follow up with them at 9 a.m. So now when I do that, that email is going to pop back up with that note that I had taken, but I'm only going to see that note, not the person who was on the email thread. And then the additional benefit of not having it on another list is that I'm probably going to be emailing that teacher, right? To say like, hey, let's meet again. And now that email's just popped up for me. I don't need to start a new email, and that context is there for that teacher too. So that's one that I use all the time. Now, the fourth scenario is that say that I have to contact like a tech vendor or something. I need some more licenses for my teachers. And a lot of times they reply back and say like, yes, I'm looking into that, or yes, I'll get back to you. Now, I don't want to archive this email yet because I still need them to reply back to me, right? But also I don't want it just sitting in my inbox, because when things are sitting in my inbox, I think I have to do something with it and it just clutters my brain. So what I do is I boomerang it if no reply. Another superpower that I absolutely adore. So only if there's no reply. And here for this one, I might just use the, pre-done thing that says in a week. So in 1 week, if I don't get a reply from the person back again, then it's going to pop back up to me. So let's go ahead and do that one. Boom. So now everything, I've kind of done something with it. No, I haven't finished it, but it's all taken the appropriate action that I need. So those are some of my favorite features with just using that boomerang. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the send later feature. So, email begets more email. Speaking of the constant email check, we often misuse email as a chat communication tool. There are better ways to do back and forth conversation. If you're already using Gmail, there is a Google Chat right there. But let's go ahead and pop back over to my inbox to talk this out. So let's say that it's 9 p.m. I decide I'm going to do one more email sweep for the evening. And I see this email come in from a colleague. And it's easy for me to reply to this. I've already decided that this was going to be my last email sweep. And personally, I like to reply to some emails in the evening. I find my brain works well at that time to do a dedicated session of focused work. And I think that's fine. Many people are like me. But there's a fine line here. If I get into a reactive mode where I'm chatting back and forth with a colleague, or I feel the need to be tackling new emails that come in after my email sweep, then what I'm working on in the evening is going to affect my sleep and be detrimental to me the next day. But if I stick to the tasks that I've pre-planned and I can get through in my allotted time for the evening, then it's very beneficial. So let's turn that back to this email reply. I've decided I'm going to reply back. But if I send this email right now, I'm putting this task on my colleague at 9 p.m. when I'm not ready to have a conversation with them. So that's where the send later comes in. So I can go ahead and I can reply, and I can reply back and say whatever I want to say. But instead of hitting the send button, I'm going to hit this send later button. And here I can just say, I want it to go to them at 8 a.m. And that by default, Boomerang, again, knows that I mean 8 a.m. tomorrow. It's the next 8 a.m. that's coming up. And now I can just press the confirm button. So now I've stayed in my focused state in a proactive mode, and I'll tackle any follow-up that's needed the next day. If I had replied to my colleague and they had replied back to me, then that would have put me back into that reactive state. And I started this webinar talking about the importance of focused work and pointing to that lack of leisure time being a real factor in our distractedness. So here's a prime example of how we get caught up in that loop. So now during my dedicated evening time, I just work through the emails that I had set aside earlier in the day, or even that I had scheduled from a previous day, because I do that too. But instead of pressing send, I hit send later. And that way the email lands in my colleague's inbox in the morning, and I know that I won't have to deal with an additional reply until then, when I can actually make a conscious decision, and they can too, about the best way to follow up and deal with that problem.
Yeah, I think another benefit of using Send Later is it really sets a precedent for adults in your classroom that you don't respond to emails outside of your contracted hours. Because if you send an email to a parent or guardian at 10 p.m., they're going to think it's okay to message you at 10 p.m. So we have to teach people how to respect our work hours, and we don't need to be reachable all of the time.
That's such an important factor too. Before we move on, I want to just show one more power feature with this send later. So here's an email. So it also works obviously when I'm composing an email, not just when I'm replying to one. So not only do I have the ability to schedule the email to be sent at a future time and date, like I just showed you, but I also have the feature right down here at the bottom. You'll see that it says remind me it says by default in 2 days. So I can check that, remind me in, say I want to set a specific time and date. You can do that too, or just leave the in 2 days by default. And here you can toggle if no reply. And that's what I normally use. There's also a regardless option that you can use, but I usually use if no reply because, you know, when you send an email, right, it just goes into your sent message. It's not still there in your inbox. And so a lot of times you just, you know, forget that it was there, or maybe you would forget that, you know, the person who you had emailed didn't follow up with you. So here's another way that you can just make sure that you're not letting anything slip through the cracks. So use this check it, remind me in 2 days if no reply. So I can couple that with this send later and say that I want to send it next. Let's go ahead and just do it on Monday. Let's do it on Monday at 8 a.m. In that case, I shouldn't remind me in 2 days. Let's just set a really specific time so I can show you all the power features right here. So I'm going to do that Wednesday because I know that's exactly when I want it, and I'm going to do that one at 10 a.m. So I can couple those things together, and now I have remind me at that specific day if no reply, and I'm going to send it later at that Monday at 10 a.m. Confirm. All right. Oh, I just messed up. I didn't press the right date. All right. It's okay. We're all human. Confirm. All right. So now it's going to remind me of that. So that is something that I really, really use a lot because I don't want to let anything slip through the cracks. And that does lead me to my next point of just freeing up our brain space, right? Using that if no reply option in Boomerang really gives me mental clarity. It frees up that brain space, it alleviates mental clutter. I don't have to keep all these follow-up tasks in my head because I know Boomerang will remind me. And I also don't need to bog down a separate task list with all those follow-up reminders. I can have peace of mind that nothing's going to slip through the cracks without really being weighed down to remember all these small but very important follow-up details. And if we think back to the problem with email that I pointed to when we opened, the distraction, the stress, and the lack of leisure time, you can clearly see how Boomerang's email features can be a big part of your solution. I've been able to maintain a relatively empty inbox even during very busy times using these strategies. And yes, I have a ton of emails that are in my Boomerang folder, which will be popping back up. But now I'm in control of when they pop back up. And that has made a massive difference for me. And I don't need to keep those emails that I need to follow up on later, cluttering my inbox now and in constant view. So I can rest easy knowing that Boomerang will remind me about the email when I need to actually take care of the problem. And so that really leads into this next topic a bit, but I want to focus a bit more on this focus work and our mental health. So that takes me to this email challenge. Now, before I get into what the email challenge that I issued to myself was, Boomerang has this magical feature that's called Inbox Pause. And Inbox Pause does exactly what the name describes. It pauses new emails from coming into your inbox until you unpause them. So one of the big problems with email, in my opinion, is that it keeps you in a reactive mode instead of being proactive with your day. Now, there's some jobs where people do spend the entire day triaging things that come into their email, but being an educator is definitely not one of those jobs. And yet we still get inundated with emails. So for me, it was around 2016 or 2017, and the constant flow of things coming into my inbox was beginning to really overwhelm me. And at that time, my main role was working with teachers at my school. Again, being the type of person that I am, I was just keeping my inbox open all day, and I was feeling like I needed to respond to people as quickly as possible to be helpful. And honestly, this way of working was taking a huge toll on me. It made me feel constantly on edge. So with the support of my supervisor at my school, I issued myself an email challenge. And my goal was really simple: to check my email only 5 times a day at set intervals by batching my email replies. And that would allow me to turn off that constant distraction, and feeling that things were coming in nonstop. By setting aside specific times during the day to check and respond to emails, I could better stick to the plans in my agenda and could tend to my inbox in a more focused way, since new stuff wouldn't be constantly coming in. I wouldn't have those pings or, those bolded new unread messages at the top. So let's hop back over to my email and let's take a look at this feature. So I'm going to go ahead and start by just pressing this inbox pause. I'm going to leave all the advanced features. You can see all of them are turned off right now, and just press a pause button. It's as simple as that. So what happens now is that nothing new is going to come back into my inbox until I hit unpause. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, cool, but do I really need that? And my response is just try it for a week. The basic inbox pause features are completely free, but there are some additional advanced features that I want to talk a little bit about because I use them during my email challenge. And some of the advanced features, you will need a pro or premium plan. So let me unpause the inbox and show you exactly what I mean. So when I unpause it, again, the emails that would have come in, but let's pause it again so I can toggle on. So this delivery exception and the bring messages back onto a schedule, those are the pro or premium features. So I did use them. What is delivery exceptions? I use delivery exceptions as a way to send a from email address that would kind of act like, when you have a VIP list and that will break through, that's going to break through your do not disturb. In the same way, this is going to break through your inbox pause. So I use this and I set delivery exceptions for my principal and for my supervisor. And I also used the keywords down here at the bottom. And I set it to urgent and ASAP. So anybody's email who had urgent or ASAP in it would break through. So I used that. And then I also used the schedule so that I would set my exact 5 checks there so that I didn't need to rely on my willpower to pause and unpause my inbox. And these are definitely nice bonuses, but if you are on the free or the personal plan, you can still pause your inbox with Boomerang, and it's super powerful. You just need to have that little bit of added discipline to get into the habit of actually using it. And if you want to hear more about my actual email challenge, on the handout that you're going to receive after this webinar, I have a link to the blog post that I wrote about the email challenge, and you can read more on that. But let me just touch on a couple of the outcomes that I saw, because I thought that this email challenge was going to be super helpful for me. But in truth, the results, they way exceeded my expectations that I even had for this. So often I would take a quick glance at my email, which I thought was harmless, but in reality, my attention was constantly divided and distraction. And the research shows us loud and clear that this is the case, but I had to experience to challenge myself to really believe it. And before I close out of this menu, Amanda, did you want to share how you use the turn on autoresponder?
Yeah, so I found that I always ended up opening emails while I was teaching that I didn't actually have time to respond to. Or parents would email saying something like, hey, can you let Katie know she needs to walk home today? And I wouldn't see those emails till the day was over. So by turning on an autoresponder and saying something like, hey, between the hours of 8 and 11:30 and 12:30 and 3, I'll be teaching and won't be able to check emails. If this is urgent, please contact the office at blah, blah, blah. That's just a way for parents to still communicate with you or guardians, but people to know that you're not going to be responding quickly in that inbox.
I love that idea. Now, I will say that one thing that I was kind of worried about when I was entering this email challenge for myself was that I was going to feel a sense of overwhelm when I looked at my inbox, since I would be going for considerably longer periods of time between email checks than I was used to. But I really never felt that way. And in large part, it was because I was processing my emails in batches now. So I was able to really bang through my inbox much more efficiently. And if you read the research on time blocking and task batching, and we do have some of that information in that handout that you're going to get after the webinar, then it will come as no surprise. But you know what else I really realized? I realized that sometimes people would solve their own problems when I didn't respond right away. And in the classroom, like, we all know the power of giving students a bit of time to figure things out before we jump into the rescue. But sometimes that healthy pause is really a good thing, even with adults. So I really learned that lesson when I was doing this email challenge. Almost about enough of my story, but one last thing before we move on is that I first did this email challenge. It was in October 2017 when I did it with the permission of my supervisor and principal. And then 2 years later, it was the fall of 2019, and I was doing a lot of things at school, and I was feeling stressed out at the time. And I swear this is a true story. Both my principal and my supervisor, they said to me, you remember when you did that email challenge where you were pausing your inbox? Maybe it's time to implement that again. And they were absolutely right. And that was a really, really powerful moment for me, because they had clearly seen the benefits of my email challenge and how batching my email responses instead of being always available actually made me better at my work. And I was so scared that it was going to make me seem less friendly or less responsive. So yeah, I think now it's probably time to move on to the next thing. But I do really challenge you to think about how this fits in with what you do. So I want to demo one more feature that I absolutely love about Boomerang that really fits into this idea of kind of blocking your time. So there is this calendar view of all the messages that you've boomeranged for later. And I love this for my weekly planning. So I tend to sit down on Sundays and look at my week in advance. And what I love about this calendar view is it allows me to see where I've scheduled my emails and make sure that I'm actually batching them in good ways. And if I'm not, then I can reschedule them to tweak them a bit. So let's go over to our inbox. And if you just click over here and you manage scheduled messages, then everything that you boomerang for later is going to show up here in a list view, but there's also this calendar view that you can click on. So let's go ahead to next week and look at my week in advance. You can see that things are pretty scattered around. Now this, just so you know, this calendar view is just my emails here. It's not going to be like my Google Calendar. I'm not going to see all the events that I have. It's just the messages that I've boomeranged. So then let's say that these two projects that are both on Monday, they're really like exploration, things that I need to explore. They're both kind of the same type of thing. So instead of having them at 2 different times, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this email here and I'm going to reschedule it. So instead of 11:30 a.m., I want to put it with the other one. So I just put it at 9 a.m., confirm. And so now you can see that both of these are batched together. And then here is like, you know, my 1 p.m. was my standing meeting with my supervisor, and then we have a faculty meeting every Tuesday at 3 p.m. And you know, how many times do you get the agenda in advance? Of course, that's very nice. Your supervisor sent it, your principal sent it, but I want to be able to reference it during the meeting. So I just boomerang it to that time. So it's going to show back up when I need it. And then again, I can choose to batch these if I need to, so you can see they're batched, or maybe I want to keep them spread out. If Wednesday, I had Wednesday at noon to read my follow-up task, say that Wednesday got really busy, you know, I have a lot of events, I don't want to do it on Wednesday, I can just press it, reschedule it for another day. So I really love having this view in Boomerang as well. That's going to leave us with thinking about this idea of like, all right, there's a lot of planning that goes into this. And maybe this sounds like a whole lot of work and extra planning. For me, I feel like doing this little bit of extra work up front saves me so much time in the long run. And it also just does wonders for my mental well-being. And this works well into my personality and the way that I do things. So it is something you need to tweak for your own self. Now, I want to share this one analogy that I read in a Harvard Business Review article, because it really, really resonated with me and talked to the importance of doing this little bit of extra planning. Suppose each time you ran low on an item in your kitchen, like olive oil, banana, napkins, your instinctive response was to drop everything and race to the store. How much time would you lose? How much money would you squander on gas? What would happen to your productivity? And I think that captures why I find the strategy of taking that extra time to batch my emails and time blocks so worthwhile, and for me, necessary. So as a strategy, think about how you can cluster similar activities together. Instead of scattering like your phone calls, your meetings, your administrative work, and your emails all throughout the day, can you group related tasks so that there are fewer transitions? And I think that transitions is a really important piece here. Task batching reduces that context switching, and it helps me feel more in control of my inbox, managing it in a more proactive rather than reactive way. All right, so we're going to quickly ask you, how's everyone doing? If you have any questions so far, go ahead and leave them in the chat. Do we see anything that we need to talk about now, or should we wait till the end?
We did have some interest in where to find Boomerang for Outlook. I don't know if you want to show that now or at the end.
Why don't we pop that in at the end, but remind me of that. And then I'll pull that up kind of at the end when we're discussing. I can show you that for sure. For now, shall we keep going?
Let's keep going, and I'll turn it over to you to talk more about the scheduling.
Yeah, so Stacy has talked about so many great ways to manage your inbox and really become more productive throughout your day. And one aspect of educator work that we haven't talked about yet is meetings. And meetings aren't something that teachers hold all of the time, but when they do need to happen, they can be a pain to organize. So I used to use a website called Sign Up Genius for scheduling conferences. And the issue was, one, how long it took to set up, and two, people not following the link and actually scheduling the meetings we needed to have, especially for things like conferences. So I would send so many follow-ups just to remind caregivers to select a time slot. And when I first started working for Boomerang and exploring meeting scheduling features, I remember thinking, oh, this could be an educator game changer. And I texted all my teacher friends immediately. So Boomerang has three main scheduling features that can be used for different situations. And today I'll show you how you can use each of these in the classroom. So Bookable is great for setting up a schedule of availability and sharing it again and again. Suggest Times is great for one-off meetings, and Share Free Busy is a really great way to quickly share your availability with others. So what I love about Boomerang's scheduling features is you can insert a magic live calendar into the body of your email. This is an image of Sarah's availability that updates in real time. So anytime Joe opens this email, he's getting a picture of Sarah's most recent availability. And Joe will be able to see this image no matter what kind of email he uses, and regardless of if he's on a desktop or mobile device. So the Magic Live Calendar is interactive. Joe can click to overlay his own calendar and see what time Sarah's offering that will work for him. He can click on a time directly in the image and schedule the meeting. And then events are automatically added to both Sarah and Joe's calendars with all of the details, including a Zoom link or other location. It only takes a couple of clicks for someone to book a time with you, which is so great. So let's go through a few ways I think you could really improve meeting scheduling for the classroom. I'm going to go over to my email here. The first type of meeting I want to show you is Bookable. So here I have a typical email I might send where I ask guardians to sign up for goal setting conferences. Usually I would insert a link like you see here, asking them to follow to a website and book a time slot with me. But seeing the Magic Live calendar in my email will increase the likelihood parents and guardians actually follow through with scheduling. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this link. And instead, I'll just go down to Meet, and I'll click on Bookable Schedule. And here I have my goal setting conference schedule that I've already set up my rolling availability for that week of conferences. So I'll just go ahead and insert that. And now when guardians get this weekly update, they'll see the available time slots and just select a time that works for them. This is updating in real time, so if a slot gets taken, they'll be able to see that it's no longer available. So let me show you what that looks like on the confirmation end for a parent. So they would select a time, and then here it's just asking them to confirm. Down here you can see I inserted a couple of questions. One is mandatory. It's, will your student be joining us? And then the next question is optional. Anything you want to share before we meet? So you can include these kinds of questions in your Bookable link. So I also just want to show you a couple other ways you can customize Bookable. So let me go to Edit Schedule and pop over to this screen. So you can customize the meeting length. So if you don't see a meeting length you like, you can customize that. You can also insert your availability down here and copy and paste it to all the other days that you want. So you could set it on Monday and then just copy and paste it to all the days. I really love that. Down here in more options, we have reminders that you can set that will go out to your guests. So really nice for parents and guardians. Send them a 24-hour notice that they have a meeting with you. You can insert buffer times down here, and you can set the dates. So this schedule only runs during your conference week and they can't book outside of it. So just a few customization features there. Let me go back into my inbox. I can also see that this Bookable being useful for admin who need to schedule annual observations, or instructional support teachers could use it to schedule IEP and 504 meetings. So the next meeting type I want to show you is suggest times. So here I have an email from a parent asking to meet and talk about their child. And in the past, I might list sometimes I'm free and ask what works for them. We'd go back and forth and set a meeting. But instead of that, in my reply, I can use suggest times. So again, I'll click on meet, and this time I'll go to suggest times. Pop-up window one more time. So I'll give it a title, so we'll call it meeting, and make sure I don't need let's just say 30 minutes to meet with this parent after school. I can insert the address, but I'm going to use our classroom number because she knows the location. And then here, if I had multiple calendars I'm working for, I could select them. And then what I'll do is just I'm going to go to next week and just drag on some times that I want to offer this parent. So I'll stay till 4 that day, drag some times, and I won't have the meeting on Friday. So if you look over here, this is what it'll look like going out to this parent. I have more control over the times that I'm offering them. So when I insert this into the email, it'll behave the exact same with that Magic Live calendar, and they'll just select a time from there, and the meeting is booked. So if anything were to get booked after I send this out, those time slots will disappear to the recipient. So that's super nice too. It really just avoids any accidental cases of double booking. The final meeting scheduling tool I want to show you is Share Free Busy. So here I have an email from a colleague asking to come by to chat before a student's IEP meeting. And rather than listing out all of my preps or what time my lunch is, I can just send her a quick snapshot of my availability. So I'll go to Meet, and I'll go to Share Free Busy, and I'm just going to say next week. I'm going to show them all next week and select the times. I'm usually at school at 7:30, so that's fine, and we'll say to 3:30. So once I've selected that and set the parameters, I just insert this into the email, and Joe can now see when I'm free, and I can say in the email, hey, just pop by whenever you see that I'm free. So they can come by in those free times. They cannot book a meeting from this link. It's just a quick snapshot of my up-to-date availability. All right, so those are the meeting scheduling features I wanted to show you. If you have any more questions, please type them in the chat. And we have step-by-step instructions for getting started with scheduling features on our knowledge base, which I will show you at the end of this as well. And if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us. Stacy, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
All right, so we are winding down our time together. Okay, let me go back to showing my window. I think there we are. So as we wind down our time together, we'd love to hear what you're thinking. What resonated most strongly with you? What will you be able to implement in your own practice? What changes do you hope to start making on Monday? Go ahead and share. You can share in the Q&A box, or if you'd like to join our challenge and our giveaway, please go ahead and post on Twitter, making use of that hashtag Boomerang webinar, and make sure to tag us at Boomerang and at BuddyXO. So we'll just give a pause for people to share if they'd like to see what each other are thinking, or if you're on Twitter, go ahead and share that.
We have a comment. Meeting scheduling will be so important in my work as an educator. Mahalo.
Yay, I'm so excited to hear that. I really think that it could be so valuable, especially like I couldn't stop thinking parent-teacher conferences, you know, just such an easy link to insert.
All right, should we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's
All right, so we are going to send, again, after this webinar, you're going to get resources, you're going to get a bunch of things that you can click through, which has some of the research that we talked about. Also, I have a lot of videos there. I have my email challenge post, so you can learn more from me, or go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, so these are what I was talking about earlier. If you're looking for some step-by-step instructions on especially setting up those meeting scheduling features, these knowledge bases are just amazing. They have really helpful articles on all of our features, as well as a lot of frequently asked questions. So definitely check those out if you're looking to get started with meeting scheduling or any other feature.
Discussion time.
Okay. Oh, why don't we go back to that question about what does it look like on Outlook? So Stacy, I believe if you go to the next slide, I have, perfect. Okay, so when you're looking for Boomerang on the desktop client, when you're going to type an email, it's the left image. So there's this tiny little thing, it says open Boomerang, that's where you'll see it. And then when you're in your inbox, you'll see kind of a drop-down menu that says Open Boomerang, and I highly recommend pinning those as well. Stacy, could you flip to the next screen for me? Okay, so if you're on Outlook on the web, pretty similar. Just look for our icon. It's gonna be right at the top on that toolbar. I forget what they call it in Outlook, but it'll be there for you. And so when you click on that, you'll get the menu of all of your options. And then one last slide, Stacy, next one. Perfect. And so when you're typing an email, this is what it looks like. You'll actually see the word Boomerang. Same thing. You'll get that drop-down menu of all of your options for Boomerang. Other questions, Mikey?
Not a question. We have Julia says she's very excited for her Boomerang challenge.
All right. Love it. Thank you.
And I did answer this question in chat. Maria wondered how to schedule meetings with multiple people. We do have group polling coming later this year. The features that Amanda showed you earlier are probably best for one-on-one scheduling.
Group polling will be really exciting though, I think, for educators. That'll be great for admin to try and like get a group of people together.
Sure.
All right, great. Okay, anything else, Maichi, or did we get it all?
BC, Sabine asked, does it make a difference if you use the remind me before you send it or after? You can actually do it both ways, set the reminder when you're writing the email, but if you forget to, you can go back, find it in your sent folder and send a reminder, set a reminder for it then too.
Yeah, I definitely do that sometimes, or sometimes you just send the email, like, and then it's, you know, if it was a reply, you send it, and then I just boomerang it to myself again as a reminder if no reply. So I definitely double up a lot of times.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. We appreciate all you do in education, and we're happy to share these tools with you. So to get in touch with Boomerang Team, you can contact us at support@baden.com. Or if you're interested in setting up Boomerang for your school or hearing about our educator discounts, you can contact sales@baden.com. Stacy, it was a pleasure to talk productivity with you.
Yeah, this was so much fun. And thank you again, everybody who's joined, for taking the time out of your day, whether you're with us live or you're watching the recording. And as I said at the beginning, don't hesitate to reach out directly on Twitter or through my website if you need any more information or if you have a question for me directly. And I want to just say a huge thank you to the Boomerang team for making this possible and for prioritizing it and working so closely with me. I'm such a fan of all that you're building and really grateful to your commitment to educators. And with that, I think we'll say good night from the East Coast at least. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Bye.